with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And now we will have our mega statement read by our student representative, Madison Zimmerman.
All students will graduate prepared with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors necessary to achieve their personal goals and make a positive impact in the world.
All right, and Ms. Zimmerman also has a representative report, which, interesting about the report. Mr. Olson, tell us what is special about Ms. Zimmerman's report before she reads it.
Well, what I just complimented her on is, you know, in the past, they would go and do this stuff, but Ms. Zimmerman, with her leadership skills, is able to approach the principals, ask them to give a brief report to her, which then she submits. So she's actually using high-level empowerment to help get her reports done. I think that's pretty impressive.
It's delegation skills. The only problem with that is when we say be brief to a principal, you're getting stuck with what you get. With that, though, go ahead and give us your student representative report.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board. I'm pleased to present an oral summary of activities across our school district for the month of December. A more detailed written report will be available for all CFAUSD stakeholders in the public minutes and in the board's monthly newsletter, Board Considerations. At the high school, parent-teacher conferences were on the 11th. We also had a representative from UWEC speak on both financial aid and how to fill out the FAFSA for parents. DECA is hosting their 9th annual Wish Week to raise money to grant a local child's wish for a camper. Coming up this Friday is our annual all-school holiday concert. And at the middle school, all teacher advisory groups are working on holiday door decorating, which they've made into a contest. A group of middle school students interested in the healthcare profession had an opportunity to explore this more through a Schools to Skills tour on December 5th. And students and staff alike are excited for a week full of holiday-themed dress-up days leading up to winter break. At Homestead, they recently hosted a canned food drive, and they will be holding a holiday shop later this week. And then on the 20th, they will be taking a trip to Micon. And then at Southview, students raised a impressive $370 during their pajama days, which all proceeds are benefiting Sleeping in Heavenly Peace. And then Hillcrest, 5th graders participated in their annual volleyball tournament, which was hosted at Stilson on December 13th, and 2nd graders attended a show at the Eau Claire Children's Theater. At Stilson, they recently worked together on an all-school service project, which was coloring lunch bags for Meals on Wheels, which I got to participate in, which was really fun. And they also hosted a family open house are going to host a family open house and sing-along after school on December 19th. At Parkview, 3rd graders had a community service project that collected items to make birthday cake bags. And then first grade is going on a bowling field trip, and kindergarten will be taking a Polar Express trip to the movie theater. At Jim Falls, the Deck the Halls fundraiser was a success, setting a new record for donations for over $4,000. And then moving forward through the month, they will be having 1st and 2nd grade music performances. In conclusion, our district is excited to spend time with their family over break and spreading holiday cheer throughout the community. Thank you for your time and attention. I would be happy to answer any further questions.
Board members have any questions for Ms. Zimmerman?
Madison, I know in your written report you have just about the evacuation last week, and I'm just curious, you know, what would you say are the lessons that we can continue to apply for, unfortunately, if these things need to happen?
Yeah, so one thing that I would say from a student standpoint is I never felt unsafe at any point you see a different perspective as a student. I was there in class. We were told to leave. My teacher told us where we were leaving, what door, made sure all students left the classroom, made sure everybody got out. And then there's a police officer who was blocking the intersections for us to walk. There was staff at the middle school telling students where to go, what grade levels were where. There were staff in there immediately. If there were any concerns or comments, they were open to that. If students needed to use the restroom, they were moving students where they needed to go. And one of the things that I spoke to Goodman about when writing my report was one of the things that kind of sped up the process of the, I can't remember, it says exactly.
Unification?
Thank you. That process was students and their cell phones. They were able to immediately after Goodman said, we're being evacuated, what happened? Everybody, hey, mom and dad, we're getting evacuated, come pick me up. And so that's why, kids aren't even getting to the middle school yet, and there's parents there to pick them up. So that was one of the things we had kind of talked about is, 20 years ago, it would have been an email that got sent out, and then parents were like, oh, I gotta go get my kid. But now it's just a text away and your parent's on the way, So that's kind of one of the things we talked about. But like I said, it was handled really well for the circumstance, and I never felt unsafe at any point, which is a great thing because,
Thank you.
To build off that, I need to know what's been the mood like since yesterday, because y'all are living in a completely different world than I grew up in, and if you could explain to me and the board and others in the room, what's it like right now? What does it feel like after you see those things occur?
I think realizing that, it's a different situation than if it would have been a real threat. Like, it was a real threat, excuse me. Like, if it would have been, they would have found something or whatever, then it would have been a different concern. But from my standpoint, in knowing that we were safe at all points, and at all times, it was not a concern to go to school the next day, to show up and go to class like I had the day before. And the teachers have done a really good job of that 4th hour class that we missed. Teachers are just slowly, some teachers did have to cut material because breaks coming up and we have tests set and things like that. But I think, in all honesty, I went to school just like I would any other day.
All right, what of yesterday's events in Madison? Was there any discussion among students about what occurred and what, have a sense for what the mood was at the high school at all? Today?
There weren't really too many kids that were on edge about it. I do know that through social media, I have seen a few kids concerned, saying, it's close, especially just some comments and things. But I didn't see anybody in person who seemed too concerned, and there wasn't any, visible, it wasn't like half my class was gone or anything like that. So I wouldn't say that there were too many people on edge with what happened, but I do know that there's a lot more of the social media aspect that plays into it.
Here's the word I would use. Do you feel like people are becoming desensitized to these kind of things? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say desensitized?
I think it would depend on who you ask. I do think that students just, my perspective on it is, I go to school like I usually do every single day. If something happens, can't really control it, but I know that we have resource officers and things in place, and we have protocol and things are, things are set up, not that we want it to happen, but if it were to occur.
Right.
And I think that there are probably some students that go to school and they're like, oh yeah, just another one, and it sucks to say because it is really sad that, we're looking at this and we're like, well,
One of the things that I do have to build off build upon is I'm gonna have to have a conversation with Ms. Goodman tomorrow. Mr. Olson made me aware of something. Again, you are some of the most polite students I've met in my entire life. Y'all need to quit opening the door for people that walk up the doors. I know that we have a lot of friendly faces that walk up the doors, and there's instances where you might know some of them sometimes, but make them go through the office and our secure entranceways, please. So if you'll remind your friends and your classmates and others about that, please do.
Yeah, we do have, I have noticed that there are staff that stand by the doors quite frequently.
Yep.
And we do have, there's certain teachers that will let students in after lunch, but it's against students that they know. I mean, it's the senior
Recognition.
class, you see them every day, you know, and we've been here for 4 years, and so that's they never did that until it gets cold enough outside that they don't want to be seen out there. But yeah, there are quite a few
You are
students
nice.
that are like, oh, you know, sorry you're cold, I'll let you in, you know, and it's like, can't do that. But there are staff that stand there, especially in the mornings once the bells ring, if there's students that didn't get in. But yeah, there are staff that stand there every once in a while to make sure they're not letting people in after the bell rings.
Thank you.
Okay, board members have any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. Next is public comment section of the meeting. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
We do not.
All right. And we will move on to 5.01 is consideration of the audit report pursuant to OE7. Mr. Trowbridge will do the introductions.
Thank you. Tonight we have Kyle Gruber. Kyle is the senior manager with Whipley that supervised the field operations and the preparation of our audit, and he's here tonight to present our audit report to you. I'll turn it over to you.
Appreciate it, thank you. I have an electronic copy that you can pull up by any chance. I didn't even bring copies for myself, but I'll reference a few page numbers. On the 98,
Would it help?
if you have one in front of you, that's probably
Would it
fine.
help you if you had it on the screen?
No, not really. I've seen it before.
Hopefully the board members have as well.
As usual, I like to thank Chad and Jessica. You know, they do a good job of making our life pretty easy. A school district of this size can take a ton of time to put these kinds of things together. And if the records were in shambles, it would definitely take forever. So thank you guys. Certainly helps a lot. We have a few that we're still monkeying around with because things aren't in great shape. So it's nice to be done. In the financials, you're not going to see a lot of changes. This was a year finally where there was no new standards. There was really no new accounting issues. Not really anything significant as far as financials go within the district. Page 1 is just the basic opinion on the financial statements. This is same report as we have every year. Format's going to be the same as it's been the last several years. It's a good, clean audit report. We had nothing of note. Unmodified opinion, and as I said, we had no significant standards. There was a small GASB standard that we had to implement, but it just changes some of the formatting in the report. It's not really anything that's worth note to the board. I think I say this every year too. Chad and Jess can give you a better analysis of the books, so I'm not really going to go into it too much. Total net position as a whole increased about $1 million. Half of that was related to pension and OPEB, the WRS stuff that just kind of fluctuates year to year, and there's not a lot that you guys can do about that. As far as the funds, which is more local level, the total increase was about 89,000, so just kind of smooth across the board. page 89, not that you have to jump there, that's the other, one of the other reports that we issue. This is on internal controls, so, you know, if there was lack of segregated duties, significant things like that, where one person had a lot of control over a certain area and there was no checks and balances, things like that. We have no issues to report in that report either, and really nothing that came up during the audit that we were significantly concerned about. Directly after that report is the federal and state grants report. Again, we do this every year, same format. Pages 94 and 95 identify the programs that we tested. Those do kind of rotate from year to year depending on how, or every 3 years or so, the bigger ones need to be tested. But again, we had no findings, no issues. I don't recall any significant questions coming up during the testing, so it was a good year from that perspective. As far as next year, they couldn't keep it the same for another year, so there's another standard that's coming out. It's gonna be GASB 101, compensated absences. I know the district already has an accrual for sick and vacation. It's gonna be similar. It would be a bigger deal for districts that didn't have a sick liability at this time. They're kind of bringing on districts that don't pay it out at retirement at all. So there may be some small changes, just based on the wording in the new standard, but I don't expect that it'll be extremely significant to your district. But we'll deal with it as we roll into next year's audit. And in the management letter, I think if you look through that, it'll be basically the same format as last year as well. And we didn't really have anything new to put in there. I could have thrown in the GASB 101, but if I was gonna chat with you guys about it anyway, I didn't feel it was necessary. That's pretty much it. It was a good, smooth year.
And that's what I like to hear.
Any questions?
In addition to Kyle, thank you, Kyle, but I appreciate the work Jessica does to make sure that we have a very clean audit and a smooth process, and we have good checks and balances and systems here, and try to be very transparent and extremely accountable for the money that we run through our district. We do about 1 million transactions a month. Sometimes it's hard to be perfect when it comes to that, but we work really hard to make sure that things tie out and are correct, so I appreciate Jessica's work.
Board members have any questions for our auditors or Mr. Trowbridge?
I do. So I made a sincere effort to go through your report, but obviously, 100 pages plus with the other things. So as board members, where can we look to summarize a good summary of what the report is about, if we're in compliance and not in compliance, or what needs where would we go as board members to get to the meat of this?
Are you wanting like the reports I identified, or more on the financial
Are we in
side?
compliance, and what are we not in compliance of? And just important things that board members would be looking for if we were looking at this report. Where would tell us if there's a deficiency?
I would say if there was a deficiency, the first place for you guys to look would be the letter.
Okay.
That's where we would identify it in the most basic and general terms. And then if there was something identified in the letter, then we would have, at the very end of the financials, there's a section called the Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. That's where it would be laid out in more detail, and that's where you would want to look. I think we have one item in there for financial reporting that we've had in there for ever. And we have that in almost all of our schools where we actually do the preparation of the financial statements. It's just kind of just because you guys aren't preparing it in-house, we don't have that intimate knowledge of what's going on within these walls. Is kind of the basis for that one. But it would show up a lot like that if we had another issue. If it was a grant issue, or a controls issue or something like that, we would add another numbered item there that would also be identified in the letter.
And I look at your letter, I did look at your letter, and, you know, a lot of it is boilerplate, you're addressing everything there. So it'd be helpful maybe if there were issues or things that, if that were listed, you know, our district is in compliance, or we are in compliance, but these are things that, you know, if it was listed right up front, so I didn't have to go through the legalese, that would probably be easier for board members.
Well, they keep us template driven for a reason though too, to make sure that we hit everything that's required in the letter. But I would say it may not show up right at the beginning, but if there were items, you could probably flip closer to the back, and that's where you'd want to look to see those items.
And I agree with Kyle. I think the management letter is pretty informative. The first 10 pages of the audit are gonna tell you all the financial stuff. The last 5 pages are gonna tell you areas we can get better at.
And if it's boring to read, that's a great thing.
And the center's really all the support that goes along with all of that.
Thank you.
All right, board members, any other questions? All right, if there are no further questions, I would look for a motion to approve the 2023-2024 audit report as presented.
I would motion to do that.
Motion by Olson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Martineau, any further discussion? Clerk, roll call, please.
Steve Olson,
Aye.
Dave Martineau,
Aye.
Dennis Fear, Sherry Jasper, aye. Sharon McElwain, Peggy McKillop, aye. Dave Check.
Aye. Motion carries. The board approved the 2023-2024 audit report as presented. Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
You're out of here, so you're not stuck here.
Good.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Mr. Trobert. All right, next is 6.01, Applied Population Laboratory Long-Term Enrollment Projection. Hard enough to say. Mr. Trowbridge, you want to do the introduction?
So I would love to do an introduction. I'd like to introduce David Egan Robertson, from Applied Population Lab out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We've made a habit of updating our long-range projection every 5 years. It's very timely this year with the work that our Elementary Boundary Review Committee is reviewing, and our last 5 years or 10 years have looked different than they have in the past, and David's research will tell us what our future might hold. So is that a good enough introduction?
That's a good enough
All right,
introduction.
thank you.
Well, thanks very much. It's always a pleasure to be able to come out in person and talk to boards about these projections. We work with 20 to 25 school districts around the state every year. Most of the graphs I'll be showing you tonight are in the report themselves. And I believe Angela, I sent a copy to Angela. You probably got that in your packet for tonight. And, you know, if you want to get into more detail, you can certainly, you know, pour over the report. What I'll be doing tonight is just highlighting the results and explaining a little bit more about our methodology. I do want to say I just got hearing aids yesterday, and you're all sounding great. But I'll ask your forbearance if I start poking at my phone. I'm trying to adjust the volume. So anyway, but everyone is nice and clear. I didn't know people could speak so clearly before I did yesterday. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, so just to go over what I'll cover here the next 20 minutes or so. Just start off with the numbers. How many students do we expect through our projections work over the next 10 years in your district? And then how did we get there? I'll talk some about the methods we use to develop the projections, which involve projecting bursts, projecting your 5K kindergartners, and then also a process we call grade progression ratio. And then just a couple general indicators about the population in the area, changes in the population and the age distribution in particular, and then also some changes that have been happening in terms of household composition. Just to sort of fill you in on where I'm coming from, the Applied Population Lab, we focus on being a clearinghouse for demographic data and products, not just for the university and for professors there, but for anyone and everyone in the state. And we even do some regional and national work as well. The term applied, and when it's used in combination with demography, means our work is very focused on practical projects that are meant to help support policy decisions. As well as helping, we do help people just understand population data and estimates and what they mean. So we just recently celebrate our 65th anniversary. And this booklet here, the cover I put on here, actually predates us. This was actually created in, I think, 1942, so it's over 80 years old. So, faculty and staff at the university have been thinking and writing about the state's population for a very long time. And when I first saw this cover, I thought, it's very quaint, right? It's a family sitting around their fireplace. The dad's smoking a pipe, and he's got a paper in his hand, and they're looking up, presumably at a prior generation of their family above the mantle. When I thought about it some more, though, it's really telling a demographic story, in that the family, presumably their predecessors, there are 7 children in the family, but the family being pictured looking at that family as only 1 child. And as I looked at this, I started to think, I've seen this picture before. This is my great-grandparents' family, and there are 6 children in the picture, and they ended up having 7 surviving children. This was taken back in the early 1900s. Here's my family, 1 child. So it does. We're all kind of living through this demographic story, and particularly as it applies to school districts and school enrollments. We're living through this story. This, maybe not quite as extreme as going from 7 children to 1 in 2 generations, but a big part of the story is just smaller families and fewer children. And I should always like to just mention some caveats. So if you've looked at the report, we actually produce a range of projections. We don't try to land on some sort of a 1 number projection, because there's just enough uncertainty, and projections are kind of I'll admit, are kind of an imprecise science. So we try to produce a range of projections for districts to look at. We do have to make some assumptions about births, because we can't always obtain births specifically within the boundaries of a district. And so we use a selection of municipalities that are either fully within the district or mostly within the district, and take that as being representative of the births within the district itself. We do need to make some assumptions about migration. There's not, unfortunately, at small levels, not really good sources of data about movements of families. So these grade progression ratios, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a couple minutes, they provide what we would say, rather than an explicit indication of migration, kind of an implicit indicator of migration. And finally, with projections, they kind of flatten out the volatility that you'll see in your history. This kind of small graph here in the lower right, that's the birth history in the Chippewa Falls area. And you can see there's variability over the last 18 years. So our indicator data bounces up and down. We can't always predict when those zigs and zags are going to happen in the future. So we do tend to just create a kind of a smooth trend line going into the future. Where'd you go? There we go. All right. So yeah, I always like to start with the results. What are predictions over the next 10 years? And just to give the past 10 years to provide a little context, this has been your total enrollment for K through 12 over the last 10 years. As you can see, it's been particularly since 2016-17, has been declining fairly steadily. And the number of students in September of this year for your district was 11% lower than, I put a plus sign there, it should be a minus 11, sorry about that. So you've been losing a little over, 1% per year on average across the last 10 years. I didn't want to put too many numbers on this graph with your elementaries, but again, just to give you the visual representation, and there's more detail about the elementary schools within the report itself. But you can see overall visually, most of the elementary schools have been declining slightly over the last 10 years. And then by the grade groupings, so 4K in elementary, over the last 10 years, your 4K program has dropped by 100 students, or about 25%. The 5K through 5th has declined by 360, or 16%. 6th and 8th grades, there's been some loss there, although not as sharp. 6th through 8th has dropped about 6% over the last 10 years, and then the high school classes have dropped by about 3%. So, in some, the enrollment losses have been occurring across all grade levels, but the greater losses at the lower grade don't bode well for the district's enrollment going forward. And a couple other items, open enrollment, you're, as you may be aware, you're getting kind of dinged by the open enrollment program. The net outflow has nearly doubled over the last 10 years. But when I did the projections, I controlled for this. I don't assume because it's doubled over the last 10 years, it's going to double again. I'm sort of holding that, the difference between, in the last year we have, just holding that constant going forward.
On that particular
Yes.
I want to ask a question.
Sure.
Are you seeing, is this a natural trend throughout the state of Wisconsin, particularly for districts this size?
Well, yeah, it is, it's a zero-sum game, right?
Right.
There are winners and there are losers. Some of the districts, for example, the suburban districts around Madison are actually net gainers.
It's the only place in the state, really.
Yeah. But I've seen in some other districts where the loss is really, accelerated. And it's like accounts for almost like a 20% loss of their students. Your difference is increasing, but it's not a super large impact on your enrollment right now.
I would add too that open enrollment has almost doubled as well, so they've been
Right.
proportionate.
So that's just some of the background, and then just looking at the projections themselves. So again, here's your last 10 years of history. Again, this is all through grade 12. So in 5 years, we're showing projections dropping down about 4150 to about 4250 from its current level of about 4500. So that's 280 to 370 lower, about 6 to 8% lower. And again, remember, over the last 10 years, your total enrollment has fallen about 11%. And then beyond the 5-year period, the projections do continue to decrease out through the full 10-year horizon. We tend to emphasize the coming 5 years because a lot beyond that point, most of the children either haven't been born yet or they haven't entered the school system. So there's a little more uncertainty the further you go out in time.
My question in regard to that particular, and you may be talking about it later in the report, however, do you attribute most of that to birth rate and to state exodus?
Yeah, I can see, and I'll show some of the graphs about how births have been dropping in the area. But yeah, what I'm seeing, well, this is a conclusion, but I'll show you all the way through, is that you've got smaller cohorts entering the system, larger cohorts graduating and moving on. So it's kind of just that, in effect, I guess, a natural process that you're just going to have smaller birth cohorts. And, that's generally true across the whole state. The number of births has dropped by like 16% over the last 17 years or so. And that's showing up in virtually all districts, around the state. Okay, so just again by grade groupings here. So your elementary grades, right now, again, a little above 1,800, we're showing them dropping down to right around 1,700 in the range of that. Decline of, around 195 to 130 or so, about 5 to 7%. And again, showing decline beyond the 5-year time horizon. The middle school classes, again, showing a drop. Right now you're at about 1,000, dropping down, around 900, maybe a little bit under. So again, a loss of 100 to 120 students, or about 10 to 12%. And then a decline for another year, but then the population in the middle school kind of stabilizes for years sort of 7 through 10. And then at the high school, again, kind of a similar pattern. You're up at about 1,440 right now, dropping down to around 1,310 to 1,350, 90 to 130 fewer students in 5 years, or about 6 to 9%. I didn't want to put a whole lot of lines on the graph, but so I took the average of the different projection methods that we use for each of the elementary schools. Again, showing a slight downward pattern for all of your individual elementary schools. So the losses here range from like 3% at Hillcrest to about minus 12% at Parkview. Those are kind of the summary of the numbers. I'll talk a little bit here about the projection models that we use. So we've got 3 primary building blocks. We've got births, we've got 5K kindergartners, and then the grade progression ratio. So the birth history, so this is showing it since 2006, so that was the year roughly when your seniors were born. And see, there's a bit of a bounce up and down. You had one high year of about 460, a low year of about 330. But in 2023, there were 100 fewer births than there were in 2006. And, so even without laying a ruler on there, you can see, okay, you've got a downward trend happening. And when we calculate trend lines for the different models that I'll talk about more in a little bit, again, we're showing a drop from the current level, about 330, down to, anywhere from 284 to 300. So a decline, again, per year of births of about 35 to 50. The 5-year kindergarten, here are the counts, excuse me, for the last 10 years. And not unlike births, you've got up and down variation, of course, as time goes along, but you're down about 60 over this time period, the last 10 years. So then projecting out, we show a decline continuing of down about 30 through the 5-year time horizon, and down about 70 through 10 years. So the grade progression ratios are a whole bunch of numbers on the screen. But hopefully I can help just step through this. This is sort of our final building block of the 3. In a nutshell, what we're trying to capture here is the change in class cohorts as they age through their schooling from year to year. So we do this on a year-by-year basis, and then we average the changes over 3 different time frames: the entire 10-year period, 5 years, or the last 3 years. And so just to give you a sense of this, so for example, these were your enrollments for 1st and 2nd grade. So in 2017-18, your 2nd grade class was 365. The prior year, 1st grade was 364. It's almost virtually equal, only added one student. So that ratio is just slightly above 1. Another example down here, 2022-23 to 23-24. The second grade class was 321. In the second year, in the prior year, it was 332, so you had some loss there. So the ratio is down below 1. But as in your district, and this holds true for most of your classes as they progress from grade to grade, these grade progression ratios end up very close to 1 in most cases. So that, again, is an indicator that once students enter the schooling, enter the Chippewa Falls School District, your class sizes pretty much stay very similar from one year to the next. Okay, and yeah, just a couple other indicators about sort of what's going on with the population in the district, particularly the change in the age distribution that's happening. Yeah, first, looking at population, it's maybe a little small for you to see, but the district actually, and this is looking between the two federal censuses, 2010 and 2020. So in the district itself, the population grew at a pretty healthy amount, about 8%. Which was better than Chippewa County as a whole. And the rate of growth was almost twice what it was for the state. But it was interesting also when you look at breaking out the distribution by age, the 0 to 17 population is very similar, almost exactly the same size, a little bit smaller in 2020 than it was in 2010. But when you look in detail at the 0 to 17 population, particularly the age 0 to 4 group, that fell by over about 300 children, or about 15%. So, and again, so this was a census taken in 2020. Those 0 to 4-year-old kids are now at the age where they're starting to enter the school system. And then just looking at households, again, you had really decent growth in the number of actual households in the district. It grew by over 10%, and that was compared to the state, which is only 6.5%. But again, households with children, even though you gained nearly 1,400 households, you actually had 200 fewer households with children under the age of 18. A drop of about 5%, which was pretty close to what happened statewide too. So, put all this information together. As I showed initially, you know, in terms of your past trends, you lost at about 600 students, or about 11% over the last 10 years. And in a particular concern, I try not to attach any value to the numbers, but these are just some things I saw when I looked at the numbers. You know, your 4K through second grades are more than 20% smaller in the current year than they were 10 years ago. And again, there's been an increased net outflow under the open enrollment program. As I point out, births and area are trending down. 5K kindergarten has also been declining across time. And there, as I said, 15% fewer 0 to 4-year-olds at the 2020 census than there were at 2010. And finally, just, you know, as I point out, the grade progression ratios are all right around 1. Excuse me. So it's indicative of steady class size as your class cohorts age forward, but smaller cohorts reaching school age, enrollment's likely to decline because of that. And finally, just a slide to sort of summarize all the projections. Again, as I mentioned, the projections are showing over the next 5 years for the whole district, a loss about 6 to 8%. Elementary schools down about 5 to 7%. Middle schools, you know, predicted to drop about 10 to 12%. And finally, the high schools, about 6 to 9% down. And again, beyond the, sort of that 5-year time horizon, all the models are generally predicting declines as they go forward. So that's the summary of the report. and see if you can track me down. I provide my phone number and email. But anyway, if there's time for questions or comments.
Thank you, though. It's real informative and it does help. I mean, we can't change it, but it helps to understand kind of where we've been and where we may be going.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting over the years at different districts, particularly the open enrollment program, which, you know, for us, I'll admit, has kind of created the Wild West of, and maybe it feels this way to you too, the Wild West of school enrollments. It was interesting, one district, you know, I did a presentation, they were showing a decline, and they did make a policy decision to try to attract through changing their curriculum and stuff, to draw in more open enrollment students, and they did actually succeed. So, you know, it is one area that, you know, it makes our prediction work harder to do, but something like that, you know, again, you're the policymakers, right? I'm the numbers guy. And, you know, if you feel within your district that you might want to change policy in some way or curriculum offerings or whatever, that's one way. At least one district that I'm aware of was able to really maintain and even, I think, increase their total enrollment.
We're seeing a influx of new private schools starting up. I imagine statewide that's happening. But shouldn't they be concerned about these numbers too? Because they are drawing from the same pool, and maybe whatever projections they have could impact what they're projecting for enrollments also.
Yeah, it is. And I think I did notice, I think I put some information in the report that the private schools in your area have actually been increasing their enrollments, which I guess I can imagine, even though you can't necessarily say, you know, all the kids who attend private schools located within Chippewa Falls District live here, but chances are most of them do, right? Right, even private schools could be facing just this demographic change that's happened in terms of fewer births occurring.
David, thank you very much.
Okay, you're quite welcome. Yeah. Anyone has any other questions, you can follow up with me. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you, Mr. Trowbridge. Next is 7.01, Jim Falls Elementary School. And it'll be Carrie Koenig and Allie Johnson.
Okay, so I'm Carrie Koenig, the Jim Falls principal, and we're doing English language arts today. And so we'll just kind of start with a little bit of Jim Falls and their student population. When you look up here, we're at 14.5% of students with disabilities, 27.4% of students economically disadvantaged. And then we do not have any English language students at our school, but all of our elementary schools, they do go to Homestead for that programming. Now, if we're looking at some academic achievement and looking at English language arts just within Jim Falls, our scores are not really where we would like them to be. We'd like to see that continued growth. It does show on here that we are still above the state average, but we are hoping to continue to grow. And as a whole, we're looking at our curriculums and maybe potentially making some changes there. And then we are on year 3 of our universal wit and wisdom curriculum as well. So hopefully that we can start seeing some of that growth. And it is growing, but not to where we would like them. So I'm gonna kind of go through some of our universal curriculums that we use and how We are using those to show our students learning and how they are able to demonstrate some of their learning in different ways, as well as how we are showing our families and connecting with their learning to home and letting them see the different things they're learning. So in kindergarten, one of the things that they do to demonstrate their learning is they create podcasts to share what they learned about. One of them is about farm animals. So they choose a farm animal, they drew a picture of it, they wrote a fact about it, and then they recorded themselves sharing their knowledge in a podcast. I don't know if it's going to play or not, but we can try it. Might not, and that'll be okay.
I don't know why it's not letting me have access.
Okay, well, we can just skip the little podcast, but there are 2 videos there that show the students and the podcast that they created, and they're just short, under a little minute clips of the students, and our teachers put them on Class Dojo so the parents can see it, so the paper goes home, but they also get to see how their child explains their writing in that in Dutch in kindergarten. No, it doesn't want to play. Okay, so then we'll kind of move on to 2nd grade and kind of walk you through their progression of writing through Wit and Wisdom. So they use various strategies throughout the curriculum. During Wit and Wisdom, they use notice and wonder charts whenever they start a new book. So this allows students to notice observations about the story and ask questions by wondering what is happening. So on the chart, you'll see that they write like, I noticed this when we were reading, and then this is what I wondered while I was reading. So it's working on that comprehension of their reading, and Wit and Wisdom has a lot of that knowledge base, so it's really honing in on some of their background knowledge, and they're able to share right away what they're noticing and wondering. Then they the next progression in their Wit and Wisdom is students, as they're learning and gathering information to help them write an informative paragraph. To ensure that they are comprehending in 2nd grade what they're learning, they can be asked some questions, and then the teacher can help assess if what they think they're learning is what they are. So before they get to the actual writing, they get to kind of assess the students, okay, are they comprehending? Are they prepared to prepare their writing? And then they move to their focused question task. And this particular one is, what challenges did the pioneers face and how did they respond? So here are 2 examples of 2nd grade informative paragraphs that students have written. In this particular one, they're focusing on using a topic sentence, 2 to 3 sentences with evidence to support the focusing question, and ending with a conclusion. So one of these has all of those pieces, and the other one, the students are still working towards that. But here you get to see how much our 2nd graders are writing and what they're expected to do within this curriculum. To help our students with their writing, they get these checklists for success, or we call them our success criterias. They really work well with Hattie's research of effect size and the importance of teacher clarity. So that is knowing what students are expected to learn for the teacher, and then helping the students monitor their own progress. So in here, the students get this before they start their writing. And this is kind of the checklist they're going to use as they're doing their writing to see, did I start with a topic sentence? Did I put those 2 pieces of evidence? Did I do anything on here? But each one of these success criterias are written per each module. So our C&I, our Curriculum and Instruction Department, has worked very hard to create these for every single module for each grade, so that it's not just one checklist that they're using for every piece of writing, but that these checklists are geared to each module. And so as the task gets a little harder or more pieces, so does the checklist. So students know exactly what they are being asked to do. So that was part of what we were doing as our whole group. But for our reading and writing, we do more than just our whole group. We also do small group time. And it looks different in every classroom and throughout the 6 buildings. They're all doing similar things, but it's on individual student needs. So our small groups might be working on free reading, fluency work, partner work, U-Fly, phonics construction, word connection, and here's just some pictures of students working in their groups. Here is a chart so with part of our Act 20, our teachers did some online training. I think you got to maybe see, hopefully, the news article that went out about how hard the teachers worked and how well they did with their AIMS pathway training. And this is one document that came out of that training. And it really helps to tailor how these small groups are being made to meet the individual needs of our students. So they're using, in the fall, they're using their fall benchmarking assessments, and then they're doing some more diagnostic testing, and they're using this chart. So with our younger students, they're starting at the bottom and assessing that phonemic awareness skills. And if the students don't have those skills, that right there is where they're having the group. But now, if they have those, you're moving up and assessing their decoding. And then you keep moving up for the younger students. But with our older students, we're not starting at the bottom because they should have some of those skills. And so they're starting right at the top at that comprehension. And if the students aren't performing well with their comprehension skills, then they're moving down to the fluency. So they're really finding that target spot. And so those small groups that you saw on the other slide, they were built by some of their benchmark scores and then where they lie here so that their group is working on those skills that they may be missing or enriching some of those skills if they have all those skills. Beyond our instruction and our small groups, we want to make reading fun. You know, we try to make reading fun within our lessons, and the knowledge is really rich, and the students really like to learn about it. But they also have extra things that they can do because we really want to encourage students to read a variety of text and really have fun with reading and have more free reading. So they have Battle of the Books. And the library media specialists, they kind of run this at our school. And I know Don Totsky has been here before and kind of competed, if you were on the board at that time, with you and the students. But the students really love doing this, and it really helps them love reading. You know, we want our students, yes, we want them to comprehend, we want them to be able to read, we want them to perform well, but we also want them to love to read and read for fun. So this is one of those ways that we can really encourage the students. And they do this, and it's before school and during their lunch. So it's on their own free time. And if you're in a classroom and they have extra time, they're like, can I do my battle books? I got to read and prepare for the battle. So it's really fun to see how much they are excited about reading because that's what we want our students to do. Other ways that we get them to be excited to read is by extending some of the lessons that they do through Wit and Wisdom. Connecting them to the students and building upon their background knowledge. So I have Allie Johnson, one of my new 5th grade teachers at Jim Falls, and she is going to share about how she has extended one of her Wit and Wisdom lessons to really be exciting for the students.
And I do need to, just a quick correction. She is the 5th grade.
Yes, not one of my 5th grade teachers, the only 5th grade teacher.
Yes. So like Kari said, I'm Allie Johnson. I'm the 5th grade teacher at Jim Falls. And Module 1 of Wit and Wisdom for 5th grade is all about Native Americans, the United States government, and then the conflicts that they had during and after westward expansion. And a large focus for us was the Nez Perce tribe out west, but obviously being in Wisconsin and being in a area like this that has a lot of Native American culture and history here, we were able to learn a lot about the tribes that have been in this area as well. And so our students were really, really interested in this, and so we were fortunate enough to have a speaker talk to our class. And so we had Monica Isham, and she's a member of Lakudere Band of the Ojibwe tribe. She is the first female and Native American judge in her county, and one of the first in Wisconsin. Obviously there's other ones, but it's not super common here. And we were able to spend 2 hours with her over Google Meet. Yeah, Google Meet. There you go. Yep. And we learned about her native language. She taught us a lot of words, some that my kids still say pretty much every day. We watched pictures and videos of her culture. We got to see some powwow videos of their tribe, and then we heard a lot of her stories as well. But the cool part was that the majority of the time was spent with my kids asking questions and her just answering all of them. And one that really stuck out to me that's still, this was like a month ago, and it's still in my head because it showed that the kids were learning what we wanted them to learn and they were applying that to this. One of them had asked, how has being a Native American impacted your journey to being a judge? And that was just like, whoa, you're 10 and you're asking these really cool questions. And so then I asked my students recently about what this meant to them. Did they enjoy this? Was this a fun thing for them? And these were some of the quotes that they had said. It was fun getting to see a first-hand Native American and see what it is like now. I loved learning a new language and learning about a new tribe. It was cool to hear what it was like to be the first of something, and I loved hearing her perspective on both sides of the conflict, because a large part, like we had said, was the U.S. government and Native Americans, and it was really cool to get to hear both sides of it from her.
Have you already gotten the Chief Joseph's speech?
Yes, we did read Chief Joseph's speech, and we're through Module 1 now, we're on to Module 2, but they did really, really well with that. Yeah, it was really cool to see. We probably have it memorized at this point. You have to read it a lot, but yeah, so that was a really fun experience for us.
All right, and that is what we are doing in Jim Falls around ELA. Any questions?
I guess I have one for Ms. Johnson, who happens to be a good friend of mine. How is the first year going? And how are your expectations with what, as you sit here at the almost halfway point, how is it going?
It's going well. Even though Jim Falls is a small school, it's got the same amount of support that I would expect to get at any of the other schools. And like Mr. Holmes said, I'm the only 5th grade, and so that's been definitely one of the bigger challenges is I can't just go next door to another 5th grade teacher and say, hey, super quickly, how do you play this math game? Or, oh, how do you do this? But everyone in the school has been really helpful of trying to help, seeing what they remember from previous years, saying, you don't know how to do it, let's try to figure it out together. So it's been really nice to work with them, and there's not one other teacher in the building that hasn't reached out and asked how I'm doing. It's pretty much every day they're like, hey, anything I can help with today, so it's been really nice.
Board members have any other questions?
Oh, I have lots, but I'm not gonna ask them. And again, congratulations and kudos to you and all the other elementary teachers in the district on the achievement with the Ames Pathway.
Ames Pathway.
Ames Pathway.
All right, thank you for your presentation. All right, fitting in with that is 8.01, our 2.1A Academic Performance ELA. Members of the board have received the CEO's monitoring report on our 2.1A. It is now the board's responsibility to consider the report as evidence of reasonable organizational progress in this area. Superintendent Holmes.
Yes. Director of Curriculum and Instruction Sue Kern has developed this monitoring report for our review. At this time, I will ask her to provide an overview of the report.
Thank you, Superintendent Holmes. Our 2.1A Academic Achievement Results Report focuses specifically on the content area of English Language Arts. Based on the results criteria that I will share in this monitoring report, it is my determination that we are making reasonable progress with noted exceptions in English Language Arts according to each of the articulated targets set forth by the board. Coming to this conclusion is challenging because there is a variance in our data across grade bands and grade levels, as you will see in this report. Let's explore the first 2 targets of reasonable progress: increasing the percentage of our students meeting ELA proficiency on state assessments in grades 3 through 11, while decreasing the percentage of students not meeting proficiency in ELA on our state assessments in grades 3 through 11. To begin, I would like to share our results from the 23-24 District State Report Card in the area of English Language Arts, which combines the results of all of the state assessments taken by our students, and the measurements that are factored into the calculation that include the Wisconsin Forward, the pre-ACT, the ACT, and the DLM exams. There are 2 priority areas that are measured in the overall district ELA scores, and they include achievement and growth. The purpose of the achievement priority area is to show the level of knowledge and skills of the students in the district as it compares to the academic standards. The achievement priority area summarizes our district students in grades 3 through 11, how they performed on the state assessments using a points-based proficiency system that gives credit for basic performance and extra credit for advanced performance. In the area of English language arts, our overall district achievement score was a 60 out of 100, which was 1.7 higher than the state average. Next, the growth priority area measures a year-to-year student progress on statewide assessments. It uses a value-added model that seeks to control for circumstances that are beyond the influence of educators. A high value added score means that the average students in the district are progressing more quickly than other similar sized districts. Growth is scored from a 0 to 100 to match the other priority areas as a conversion from the roughly 0 to 6 value added score. As a district, although our growth score was lower than the overall state growth score, compared to our growth score from last year, we did improve our score by 1.2 from a 61.3 to a 62.2. As indicated last month, as we build in specific actions to narrow in on our students who need additional support and resources to accelerate their learning, we are seeing incremental gains in our high priority demographic groups, proficiency levels over the course of the last 3 years, which gives us an indication that the targeted efforts that we are focused on in the area of curriculum instruction and assessment, as well as the professional development that our staff are engaged in, are having a positive impact on the student achievement and growth rates of our students. Now we'll hone in on each of the state assessments results independently. We'll start with the Wisconsin Forward exam. The Wisconsin Forward State Assessment is taken by our students in grades 3 through 10. However, in the area of English language arts, only students in grades 3 through 8 are assessed using this assessment. It should be noted that in the 23-24 Forward Assessment, the assessment was updated to align with the newest state standards. Therefore, the performance level percentages for 23-24 cannot be compared to prior years because the performance levels have been recalibrated and renamed. With that said, the graph that has been shared with you over the last 3 years of proficiency scores in ELA compared to the overall state averages. In ELA, our student overall proficiency percentages in reading and in writing, as well as the overall ELA proficiency percentages in comparison to the state average, have shown a favorable trajectory in grades 3 through 8 that we are pleased to see as the data tables that have been shared with you show. At the high school level, our students are assessed with a pre-ACT secure exam and the ACT. The pre-ACT is a state assessment taken by our 9th and 10th grade students. 2023 was the first time this assessment was administered to our 9th and 10th grade students. It replaced the ACT Aspire assessment that was administered to our 9th and grade students from 2017 through 2022. The pre-ACT replaces proficiency scoring to ACT predictive benchmark scoring. In ELA, our overall student benchmark score was a 15.7 in grade 9 and a 16.5 in grade 10. The college readiness benchmark for AC English on the ACT is an 18 and in reading a 22. Our students underperformed on this assessment compared to the state average benchmark scores. However, the increase in our average benchmark score from grade 9 to 10 showed a favorable trajectory. We are seeing a steady decline in the average benchmark score of our 11th grade students in English language arts on the ACT exam. We have experienced a decline over the past 3 years. For the first time in the past 4 years of our average benchmark score has fallen below the state average benchmark score, so this is an area that we are watching closely. Our third target for reasonable progress focuses on student proficiency grades at our local level. Formative and summative classroom assessment results are generated by common classroom assessment that are analyzed by our instructional staff to make instructional decisions in the classroom at the classroom level, which is the most impactful on student learning. This source of student achievement information also provides us insight to which students may benefit from an intervention or an enrichment. A strong universal level of instruction programming meets at least 80% of our learners' needs. The data chart that I have shared with you has the final proficiency levels for the required ELA courses in our district. This includes 21, 22, 23 end-of-year ELA proficiency grades compared to 2024 end-of-year ELA proficiency grades. The percentages indicate the number of students who had met proficiency on end-of-the-year standards that were taught and assessed by our staff. At the elementary level, we did not meet the needs of 80% or more of our students at each grade level. We are optimistic that with the fidelity of the implementation of our new resources and the calibration of our assessments in the standards that are being assessed across the buildings and classrooms, that we move in the direction of meeting that 80% benchmark. At the middle level, we continue to strive to have 80% or more of our students meet proficiency on all end-of-year state standards assessed. As we continue to review and revise our existing curriculum, we are finding areas where we need to improve, including skills in writing, vocabulary, as well as grammar and conventions. Students at the high school level are meeting 80% benchmarks in all required courses in the traditional grading system. With regard to our commitments to improvement, at the elementary level, all of our elementary educators and leaders have been engaged in rigorous learning and implementation of cutting-edge research on reading instruction, often referred to as the science of reading, which is a driving force behind Wisconsin Act 20. Wisconsin passed Act 20 legislation, also known as the Right to Read Act, with the goal of improving early literacy skills for all students in Wisconsin. The requirements for PK through third grade have developed to reflect similar legislation that has been enacted in other states, yielding positive gains for students. We have embraced this challenge as an opportunity to align our efforts with urgency and focus. Communication regarding our work to meet the demands of Act 20 is being shared with families through elementary newsletters. In light of the changing demands of our pre-kindergarten through third grade teacher leader group, they have begun a full foundational skills curriculum review cycle. The process is being informed by analysis of student benchmark data in pre-K through 3, as well as the study of alignment between our current universal foundational skills curriculum, which is Foundations for PK through 3, and our understanding of the research through our new training. Under the leadership of Katie Koppenbarger, Assistant Curriculum Director, and the dedicated Curriculum and Instruction Professional Development Team, our teachers have gained advanced skills in implementing science-based reading instruction, early literacy screening, and targeted intervention strategies that are all crucial components of Act 20. Our teachers have distinguished themselves by achieving exemplary performance status from the AIM Institute, surpassing standard benchmark in completion rates, average course scores, and final test performance. This achievement underscores our educators' dedication to implementing the most effective research-based literacy instruction methods in their classrooms, and that was shown tonight. Report card statements and guides for reporting progress have been revised to align with learning from the training of all of our teachers that they have engaged in. Increased K-5 progression coherence aligned to Act 20 implementation and improve organization and language to be more parent-friendly. Our instructional specialists, reading specialists, academic chairs, principals have all been committed to supporting the work of our teachers in every classroom. All are helping to lead and facilitate and collaborate discussions focused on evidence and student learning, goals for instruction, and meeting individual student needs in English language arts. We are committed to decreasing the number of students who score below the 25th percentile and thus require a personal reading plan. And we are committed to continuing to increase our proficiency rates on the Wisconsin Forward exam for all of our students in grades 3, 4, and 5. At the secondary level, our ELA team that includes all teachers who teach reading and English in grades 6 through 12 have continued their curriculum revision journey throughout the last year and the beginning of this year during our district scheduled professional development days, designed and facilitated by Charlene Colvin, one of our reading specialists. As we have journeyed through the first 2 phases of the curriculum revision cycle, we have unpacked and prioritized all ELA standards, developed a secondary scope and sequence aligned to the standards. We have reviewed our current data and longitudinal data. We have learned from each other and with each other about research-supported instructional practices. We have vetted potential resources and have engaged in resource pilot this fall. Engaging in this work has been time and thought-heavy work, and I wish to thank all of the staff who have been a part of this engagement up to this point. During this year's October and November professional development days, a determination on how to proceed with our secondary ELA revision was made through the collective agreement process. Our 6th grade teachers will be continuing their implementation of work by adopting My Perspectives texts and supplemental resources moving forward. Support moving forward with the implementation will be provided by SAFAUSD literacy consultant who will work in tandem with our district instructional support team, including Charlene Colvin and Amanda Hill-Hobley. Our 7th through 12th grade ELA teachers have made the determination to engage in a revision process with our existing district-created curriculum. The process will entail a text collection audit to ensure that our students are engaging in rich grade-level complex texts, both informal and literary, to increase the amount of knowledge our students are building and exposed to. Our PLC teams are also engaging in a thorough analysis of the existing curriculum and assessments utilized as a curriculum review tool. Based on the analysis, adjustments to the existing units and lessons that will be made to ensure all students are engaged in a universally aligned, viable curriculum at the appropriate level of rigor outlined in our adopted standards. The high school English department has made adjustments for this year, adding ACT-style prompts to their 10A course and the target argumentative writing and understanding perspectives in text. This work will be supported by both our curriculum department experts as well as the literacy consultant from our CESA 10. This work is expected to be completed by the end of the year of 25-26 school year, and we look forward to the positive results that will occur. At this time, I am open to any questions that you might have with regard to this report.
Thank you, Ms. Kern. I appreciate that. Your final ELA R2.1 report. Greatly appreciate it. At this time, I ask for the board's acceptance of the monitoring report.
Board members, I would look for a motion to approve this report as our own, make it our own so that we can discuss it further.
I move to accept the R21A monitoring report on ELA.
Motion by McKillop. Is there a second? Second by Jasper. Any further discussion on the acceptance? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The 2.1A monitoring report on ELA academic performance is now ours to discuss further. Board members have any questions before we decide using our results policy motion language if the district has made reasonable progress?
I would like to remind the board, even though the report does indicate that there's reasonable progress in all of the areas associated with the report, that Ms. Kern was recommending reasonable progress with noted exceptions, which was during the course of a report. I personally, as superintendent, do agree with Ms. Kern's assessment that it should be brought forward to the board in that manner.
I guess I've got a question kind of in that same line. So we only have about 3 or 4 targets for our monitoring report for the ELA. And we know that there's other things that weren't part of the targets. So going forward, do we have to have more targets on here so we can better monitor this report? Because we really don't have this report won't reflect the specifics that our normal monitoring report would have if it had all the targets. Does that make sense? If you
It
have
does to
additional
me, and I'll look to Sue to expound on this, but from my perspective, given what I know about the Act 20 legislation and what it's going to do for grades, certainly K through 3, but also because our other teachers, K through 5, our other teachers 4 through 5 received additional training in regard. Yes, I do believe that adjustments are going to have to be made to our reports. I also know that at the high school, there's being significant work done in regard to curriculum reviews and material reviews and all those types of things. So my assumption is that I didn't see a need in this particular cycle to make adjustments because we're going to need to see what happens with Act 20 moving forward, and then we need more solid information in regard to what are the outcomes going to be from that curriculum redesign at the high school level. So, yep, but yes, I do think it's going to have to be adjusted.
Board members have any other questions or comments regarding the report?
So I'm just, because I know you guys do tons of work around, you know, not only preparing teachers, but looking at data and matching things up. But what have you determined is happening in third grade? Because it just seems to be a year after year concern. And so it's not a group, it's a.
So it's interesting, Katie has connections, and we were able to get a hold of a spreadsheet that narrows every question on the Wisconsin Forward, so we can look specifically at which standard and which questions and type of questions that our students struggled with. When Katie and I sat down and did a deep dive into that spreadsheet, we recognized that the students that part of our scope and sequence, right? The test was revised this year. It was a scope and sequence issue. So our students in third grade had not been exposed to the content. We had it at the beginning of fourth grade. So now we know that shift needs to take place and we can accommodate that. Honestly, moving forward, I don't know. It seems like this is year 7 for me, and we keep changing state assessments, we keep changing so many things that it makes it really challenging to get any kind of longitudinal, consistent data. My hope is that the state doesn't once again change the forward to something different, but it seems like once we finally, so the new ELA standards were out 2 years ago. The state assessment just gets caught up to it. There'll be another review in 3 years. So it's very challenging. And the way that we have the results, the targets for success written, it's, right, we're gonna increase the percentage of students who are in the proficient band and decrease. To me, that's just one.
It is the same thing, right?
That's one area.
And
I think
we already know that for next year, the state is changing their criteria for assessment.
yes.
We don't know if they're going to change what's the contents of the assessment, but we do know already that they're going to rethink and change how they do the assessment,
Yeah, and
the scoring.
a part of me wonders if one of the measures that we use, I think the Wisconsin Forward is a good sense of, I think that that's a solid measure to use. I think that looking at how the percentage of our students who are requiring an individual learning plan or falling below that 25th percentile may be a better indicator at the elementary level. But that really is 0-3. So Wisconsin Forward carries 3 through 8, and then you have another set of assessments, pre-ACT and then ACT. So
Well, but I see that, you know, in our district standard-based assessments too, you know, in that chart on page 9, it's our third grade. And that struggles.
Yeah.
In more so compared to the other groups. So even when it's our own assessment, that grade level struggles.
So third grade, you're shifting from learning to read to reading to learn, right? And so that is not uncommon. What I look for specifically is how we are doing in comparison to the state. And looking, drilling down into how our students did and looking for growth within the cohort. So if our third grade, when they move to fourth grade, are above the state average, right, our students are growing, and that's the most important aspect. I think for me, the thing that is the most concerning is the decline at the high school level on the pre-ACT and the ACT. And I think that as our students from the elementary continue to move through the middle and high school, you can see the level of rigor that our kids are performing at second grade, third grade, and our middle and high school teachers haven't necessarily experienced those skills and knowledge that kids are going to be coming with. So we've been doing a lot of professional development conversation around that, so that we are making sure that the curriculum at the middle and the high school level are at the right level, the depth of knowledge and the right level of rigor, because our students will come
And
more
I
prepared
have
than
to
they have.
add this anecdotal observation. It is the science of reading. Everything has become so focused on the science piece of it. I can tell you what I appreciated most out of the Jim Falls presentation was you bringing up the fact that my assumption is it's not just happening at Jim Falls, and I don't think it is. It's that you're looking for ways to make the reading fun, that the kids enjoy the reading, that it's something that becomes something they want to do, not something they're compelled to do. So I do appreciate in our settings that there's an emphasis on that, because if we ever get to the point where it is all compulsion or compelling kids to learn something, it won't stick in their brains. They've got to want to learn it. So I appreciate what was brought out in today's presentation. It's at some point you've got to make the kids want to read. You can't force them to read.
I guess that's my question with the pre-ACT and the ACT, and maybe Addison can reflect on this too. I mean, is it the fact that we're making them do a test that may not have value? And so is it a true representation, and is it more of a test-taking situation than it is our actual skills?
I think, well, I'll let you've taken the assessment. Sure.
I was in that grade where we took the pre-ACT as sophomores, but not as freshmen. We took the Aspire, is it?
Yep.
Okay. I will say at a high school level, you have the kids that care. They want to do well. They want to get into a good college. They want to score well. And then you have the kids that are like, well, I'm here. They told me I had to show up. If I didn't show up, I had to do it at the retake day. And so it's hard because, like, in my grade right now, I have kids I'm in AP Stats, and I have kids, that's a group of kids that want to be there. They want to do well. And just recently, the conversation has come up of retaking the ACT because their students were like, well, I scored, 2 points below what I wanted to it, but that's a group that wants to, they are in that class because they want to go to college, they want to do well. But there are students who are like, well, I'm just here to take the pre-ACT. It doesn't matter anyways. It's not even the ACT. Then you get the kids who are like at the ACT and they're like, well, I'm going to tech school, or it doesn't matter because, it sucks because, but there are those different.
And it's not a good atmosphere for the kids that really want to do well, because now they're sitting in a class where a kid simply doesn't do a section. So now the kid's being a distraction, teacher has to work with that kid. And so the atmosphere for those students that see themselves going into college who want to do well on those two tests are fighting distractions that they normally wouldn't have to have if they were in a different setting. Part of it is, as teachers at the high school, we try to tell the kids that even though it's the ACT, which they see as a college-only test, that there are tests that they're gonna have to get into other places like ASVAB or to get into a technical college, that anytime that you can practice test taking, which is an art in itself, that you should take it as that, but we're still fighting those students that just, well, I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not doing it.
And I can agree with the distraction piece, because me personally, I'm a slow test taker. I want to be thorough and I want to make sure I know what I know is on the test. So I took the full time period for every section, and that's just how I am. I was that way through all grades, forward tests, star tests, whatever it was, I was that way. And so I can attest to, students who are like, okay, C for every answer, close my Chromebook. Now I'm gonna, play with this piece of paper I have and tap my pencil on the table the whole time, become a distraction to students who want to take that full time.
Board members, we need to make a motion at this time.
I move that the district has made reasonable progress with noted exceptions on R21A ELA.
Motion by McKillop, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Olson, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The district is found to have made reasonable progress with noted exceptions in R 2.1A. Thank you, Ms. Kern, for your last presentation. All right, next is 7, Financial Administration. Members of the board have received the CEO's monitoring report on OE7, Financial Administration. It is now the board's responsibility to consider the report as evidence of compliance in this area. Superintendent Holmes.
Yes, Director of Finance and Operations and Facilities, Mr. Chad Trowbridge, has developed this monitoring report for our review. At this time, I will ask him to provide an overview of the report.
Thank you. I always like to say it's kind of unique to have our audit report from the prior year before this, because this report references the 2022-23 audit quite frequently. So you'll see that show up a lot, and I just think it's a little bit unique. For financial administration, this is superintendent shall not cause or allow any financial activity or condition that materially deviates from the budget adopted by the board, cause or allow any fiscal condition that is inconsistent with achieving the board's results or meeting any operational expectation goals, or places the long-term financial health of the district in jeopardy. There are 14 indicators of compliance, of which noted in this report. With the artifacts presented, we are in compliance in all categories. I'll just highlight each of the 14 indicators and then summarize. OE 7.1 is assuring that our payroll and debts are promptly paid when due. OE 7.2 is assuring that all purchases are based on comparative pricing. OE 7.3 is using a bidding procedure that's competitive in nature for all transactions in excess of 50,000. OE 5.4 or 7.4, excuse me, that we coordinate and cooperate with the board's appointed financial auditor. You met the Whitley folks earlier tonight. OE 7.5, the superintendent will make all reasonable efforts to collect any funds due to the district from any source. OE 7.6, that we keep complete and accurate financial records in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. OE 7.7 is publishing a financial condition statement annually. OE 7.8 is making sure that we do not expend more funds than have been received in the fiscal year unless approved by the board. OE 7.9 is making sure that we don't obligate the district for any short or long-term expenditures that would indebt the district. OE 7.10, making sure that we do not expend monies from reserve funds. OE 7.11, making sure we don't permanently transfer money from one fund to another, again without board approval. OE 7.12, not allow any required reports to be overdue or inaccurately filed. That is something we take very seriously. We do file our reports on time, and they are accurate. OE 7.13 is not receive, process, or disperse funds under control that are insufficient under generally accepted accounting procedures. OE 7.14 in the final is to fail to correct any negative findings to the external financial audit and report corrective actions to the board. For the past year, financial administration, in my opinion, has been very good. All obligations, both assets and liabilities, have been received and paid. All reports and necessary findings have been done on time and filed accurately, and there were no audit findings for the year 2022-2023. We are committed to continually improve our process so that we don't have negative audit findings. There are additional reporting responsibilities and requirements related to ESSER funds. We'll work to make sure that we remain compliant in all of those areas. And I will say it does continue to be speculative about what affect future state budgets, or federal budgets, I guess at this point, will have on our future fiscal obligations and financial statements. Kyle mentioned some of the accounting standards that do change periodically. It's difficult for him to predict what would come our way in terms of changes, but generally they make our audit report a little bit longer and probably cost a little bit more money. That's all I have tonight.
At this time, thank you, Mr. Trowbridge. At this time, I ask for the board's acceptance of the monitoring report.
Right, board members, if anybody would like to make a motion that we accept this report as our own for further discussion, now would be the time to do so.
I would make a motion to accept it.
Motion by Martineau, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Olson, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. OE 7 Financial Administration is now ours to discuss further. Board members have any questions for Mr. Trowbridge?
Thank you.
Very welcome. There are no questions. I would look for a motion using our operational expectation policy motion language.
I move that the district is in compliance with OE, or what are we on?
OE 7
OE
Financial
7, yes.
Administration. All right, motion by Martineau. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by McKillop. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The board finds the district in compliance with OE 7 Financial Administration. Thank you, Mr. Trowbridge.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the board's consent agenda. Is there a request by any board member for a removal for separate consideration, any of the items on the agenda? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the board's consent agenda as presented.
I move that the consent agenda be accepted. Motion.
Motion by Martineau. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Olson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The board's consent agenda is approved as presented. Next is the superintendent's consent agenda. Is there a request for any of the superintendent's consent agenda items to be removed for separate consideration? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by McKillop. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Martineau. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
May I interject for just a moment?
I thought you were saying nay.
Oh, no, not at all. Again, on that consent agenda item was the calendar for next year, and again, that was Sue's last calendar that she helped bring forward, and I just want to recognize her for all the work that she's done over the years in regard to our school calendar. It's a heavy lift.
Must have done a good job if it's a smooth process like that in approving.
Tell them the truth, is it a smooth process every year?
It's gotten to be smoother. It's a collective effort, so it's been good.
She's managed it well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that.
Matters reserved.
Yeah, I think we did, so we didn't say nay, so motion carries, the superintendent's consent agenda is approved as presented. Next is matters reserved for board action. No items were removed from the board's consent agenda, no items were removed from the superintendent's consent agenda. So, consideration of the 2025 proposed WASB resolutions. Take it away.
All right, on November 27th, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards reported the Policy and Resolution Committee had wrapped up its work and decided to put forward 12 proposed resolutions. That will go before the Delegate Assembly in January. Each school district does have a vote, and I am your representative. Unfortunately, an error occurred in the mailing packets and the initial online publication of the proposed resolutions. And so that has now been updated, and you've had that information in front of you. You also have administrative viewpoints, because we do ask as a coherent governance board to have the insights of our administrators as we look to the resolutions. At this point, rather than going through the 12, are there any concerns as far as our voting approval for each one of these resolutions?
All right, well, that's efficient as well, I guess, because you've made proposals on which ones we're gonna go with, right?
What I'm reading and hearing is that we will, in essence, vote yes on all of the, what we've been given here. You know, when you're on the floor, amendments happen, and we can make amendments, so sometimes things change, but you're entrusting me to understand the district and make the vote that would best fit our community.
Think on the fly,
I've seen
I'm a
amendments to
debate state
amendments.
champion. I'm good. So, I think what we do need though is a motion and a
We need a motion. We need a motion to recommended action is a motion that the board agrees to support the following proposed 2025 WASB resolutions at the WASB Delegate Assembly during the State Education Convention, and authorize our representative to do so.
I so move.
Motion by Olson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Martineau. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for doing this.
Yes.
You made the motion because you're not it.
4 hours of my life I'll never get back.
And I don't mind doing it. I know you didn't enjoy it.
Whoever votes nay gets the position next year. All right, 12.04, Policy Committee meeting notes. Let's see.
Mr. Fear is not here,
Who's not here?
and so he asked
Jasper-
me if I
Jasper
would
Philipar.
do that. And honestly, we met to kind of follow up on a few different items. And you'll see in the notes that things we looked at was just something that's come up with our electronic audio and video recording. So having to look at that in a few different ways. Continuing with no changes on the drug-free workplace policy. Did a revision to the vacancies that we will be voting on next. And then continuing to work on our 3139 and 4139 staff discipline policies, just for clarity on timelines and support. And that is a work in progress yet.
Board members have any questions, or Peggy, have anything to add?
No, just the vacancy policies, the previous language stated something, that internal candidates, there was like a 5 additional days before it could be posted external, and that puts the district in a tough spot when somebody leaves either during the year or whatnot, so it's, the recommendation is that internal and external dates will be the same.
Coincide.
Yeah. So that they don't run into that.
How do the current staff feel about that? Isn't that something that's sort of a benefit or advantage to them?
Or a disadvantage if they're trying to replace a colleague and feeling like they have to
pause for 5 days before they can move, because not always do they want to move internally. It also does state that all applicants will be considered in the same manner, just because they don't have that 5-day time to apply. We still can internally hire or transfer our people. So sometimes the way that we were reading it too would be, might be posted 5 days internally, and we have some applicants, but we also then post externally, and so we're interviewing all of the people at the same time anyways.
So it's essentially just a forced 5-day wait for everyone then.
I think in practice, we've seen a lot of transfers happening in positions across the district, so it's certainly. And the other piece of that too is, I think, if we just determine that it's in the best interest of our students to make the transfer, we have that opportunity as well. And then we know who our candidates are for a next opening. So like this summer when we posted for just elementary positions, we didn't necessarily have a specific school or grade level on them, as we were anticipating some potential shifts. That just allowed for us some more flexibility in making decisions as quickly as we could.
So that's not something that we're approving here, that's just kind of informational for.
It's the
You're
next
approving the
item.
notes.
So notes, just in the notes.
Yep.
All right, board members have any other questions? Otherwise, I would look for a motion to approve the December 5th, 2024 Policy Committee meeting notes as presented. Motion by Martineau, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Olson, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, the board approves the December 5th, 2024 Policy Committee meeting notes as presented. Next is consideration of policy 3132 and 4132 vacancies, and I think that's what we just spoke on. Ms. Deneuer, is there more on that, or did I really jump the gun on that?
No, I
It's
don't-
just Neola rewriting.
yeah,
Okay.
we work to rewrite
Yeah.
to better fit what our needs are currently.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it up to the board. Do the board members have any additional questions before we make a motion on these policies? Otherwise, the recommended action is to approve the revised policy 3132 and 4132 as presented.
So move.
Motion by Jasper, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Martineau, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, the board votes to approve the revised policy 3132 and 4132 as presented. Thank you, Ms. Deneuer. Next is 12.06, consideration of employee handbook revisions. And again, that would be by Ms. Deneuer.
Thank you. So I have brought before you some timely changes that I feel would be appropriate in the best interest of our staff, and also have sought feedback on these specific changes from our last developed our people pillar group. And so we met a few weeks ago, got their input, and then also they were able or charged to go back to their buildings and connect with the individuals in their buildings about these proposed changes. The first 3 lines, page 20, 22, and 22, have to do with just cleaning up our language. Right now, our language reads that our compliance officers would have both a male and a female compliance officer. I would recommend that we just have 2 employees designated as that, and not call out gender for our compliance officers. The second one on page 22 is having more specifics and including 5 business days from notification for respondent of the for deadlines. That then plays into page 22. On page 21, it states that we have business days
but further down in the reading, it was read as calendar days, and I think it's important that as we're following a process, we're talking about the same days, so there's not confusion about when things should be expected to happen or be completed by. And questions on those first three as they're tied pretty closely together. On page 31, it was just, again, matching the language of our flow chart in our handbook to the language that was written out in our handbook. You can see the current flow chart in the link for the handbook, and then you can see the updated one that, again, makes sure that the language calls out the same days or types of days, calendar versus business versus school days. Some of those are used interchangeably, but they mean different things. And then page 41 is around our remote learning days. Currently, our handbook states that our student support teams or individuals, as well as our food service individuals, are to not be able to work on remote learning days, and rather could be provided the opportunity to make those days up at the end of the year. With us moving to remote learning days, there isn't that opportunity necessarily to make up that time with kids in front of them in the buildings at the end of the year anymore. Also, with the way we have our remote learning days set up, it would allow for our staff who may not be coming into work or who may not have a direct assignment with students for the entire school day, that they would be able to leave work prepared to take work home from our workroom or prep work that they would do for our students within their classrooms. It also gives the opportunity for our people to come in and work on site if they deem it safe to work. Financially, we're in the same place. It's giving them the access to the pay that they were under the impression that they would be getting with their, not their contract, but their agreement of the number of days on their calendar that they would be working. So it won't cost us more. And in the area of food service, and talking with Susan, our director of food service, she would actually be able to potentially have a little reduction in cost because of the trainings that she would like her staff to be able to engage in. They only work, many of them, under 5 hours a day. And so instead of extending a day so that they could engage in training through online sources that Susan has, they could do that in place of serving kids on remote learning days. And there's a collection form that those people would have to complete to be able to turn in for Susan to sign off on to see that they engaged in that learning. But they too, they being food service workers, would have the option of taking a personal day or a day without pay. They also have the option, if they want, to make it up at the end of the year, but not all of our hourly staff are paid sometimes differently than our certified staff and are counting on that income. So we felt that it would be in the best interest of our people knowing that it wouldn't impact our budget, and knowing that it would also allow for work to be done when kids are going to be back in the building right after a remote learning day, as opposed to in June when the kids won't be back for a few months. So questions about the remote learning day and being able to have our student support staff as well as food service have the opportunity to work on those days.
May not happen again, and I think it's a great idea, but when was it, 4 or 5 years ago when we had 9 snow days? I mean, are they gonna find 9 days for them to fill in? I mean, that would be the exception to the rule, but that would be the only thing that would cause finding more jobs or something like that.
Yeah, and I guess it would, I'm hoping that we don't have that experience again, and I can't predict that. I feel like, again, the work that they would be doing if we were in session is still going to exist, such as that prep work or some of the training opportunities that they would have. So I don't know that we would put it on at the end, because the remote learning days are counting towards our minutes.
Sarah, when you brought these changes up to the committee of staff, what was the feedback that you were given?
It was very positive. They felt like it was the right thing to do for colleagues and coworkers, and that was the same feedback that was shared with me by the committee members after going back into their buildings or departments, that they were appreciative of having the conversation and having that be an option.
That was also one of the topics for compensation for the support staff last year, was exactly what you're doing there. I mean, addressing losing days. Not exactly the format, but yes.
All right, and then there is just one more on page 58, and the proposal is just to update our educator effectiveness language to coincide with our practice as well as the changes in expectations from our state. We will still be in compliance, but a PPG is no longer a state required component, and so we've put that into our SLO. So we're still talking about professional performance growth, but we're just folding that in and having our teachers have one fewer form to complete throughout this process. So again, I just thought it would better reflect, our handbook would better reflect our current practice and what's expected of us.
Board members have any other questions regarding the employee handbook suggested revisions?
Well, quick question, are we kind of looking to twice a year or as needed? I know we've gone.
Yeah. I guess the committee appreciated the timeliness of the remote learning days, knowing that that could be upon us sooner than later. Their feedback wasn't necessarily that we should be meeting often and discussing. They felt like if it was something that needed to be changed and would be in the best interest of our people in our district, that I reach out, or they'd reach out to me, and then we'd discuss and I'd bring it forward if I felt that was appropriate. But they did prefer or want to make sure we kept the one overview for sure, which happens usually May, June is my understanding.
All right, board members, if there are no other questions, motion to approve the recommended changes to the employee handbook.
Sorry, I've seen that it says pending legal review down below. Is that part of the motion or?
No, legal review's been done.
It's complete.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Martineau.
No, that's okay. I make a motion to accept.
Motion by Martineau, is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Olson, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The revisions suggested to the employee handbook are approved. Thank you, Mr. Nooner. All right, communicating with the board, 13.01 is the early compensation study findings for district services, school nurses, OTs, PTs, SLPs, school psychs, co-curriculars, pursuant to OE5 and OE6. Mr. Nooner as well.
Thank you. So hoping to give you just a brief overview of where we're at and answer any questions that you may have. So as you know, we currently are in a 4-year rotation process. Mr. Check highlighted all of the people that we are reviewing this year. Just a reminder of the 10 comparable school districts that we are using to compare our salaries or wages with those 10 school districts. This was and is the mission that was developed as part of the teacher compensation study. And I do feel that this mission still upholds what we are wanting to do through this work. The next one is the board core values. This too was developed, or these two were developed at the onset of this compensation study process back in 2014. And so I would just ask that if there are any changes that you feel should be made or highlighted or anything struck, this committee comes back together again in January. And so if there's any differences that we need to update or change from the core values for the board, I could share those at that time with not the compensation people that are being currently studied because we're under these core values, but for rather than a group that's looking at the process to bring before you, that may shift and change. So if there's any changes to those core values, please let Mr. Holmes know and he can communicate that with me. This is the comp study timeline that we are following. We are making decent progress. A lot more happens after the new year with making sure that we are running our numbers, coming up with our proposals, running things through Chad and his department, and seeing how that falls into our staffing plan. More meetings with the individuals who are being currently studied with any final feedback, with an update again in January to the board and February to the board, with the final recommendation in March. That would be part of then the balanced budget in April. So just to highlight, part of this process is another look at job descriptions. All of our employees are expected to review and sign off on their job descriptions at the start of every year. And then we dive even deeper in with supervisors in the HR department to look at the job descriptions and make sure that that the job descriptions are matching the positions of our people. And so that process has gone well and is, I would say, just about complete. There were just a few follow-ups that people wanted to talk about, and it was more about the format as opposed to the content in the job descriptions. So we are looking at developing a pay scale for these various groups, and we'll again use our 10 comparables to produce that. We're also reviewing the co-curriculars, and so we've met with a small group to review the process that was currently or has been in place, make some recommendations. Their charge, right, is to come back, get some feedback from the people in their own buildings, departments, and then once we kind of have an idea of where we're at now in the compensation for co-curriculars, then we'll ask for some additional feedback for those involved in co-curriculars. We did expand and are working to include some more elementary representation. There's one paid elementary co-curricular at this point in time, and so we just wanted to have some elementary representation around the table in addition to our secondary. So again, costs out in February coming your way, board action in March with a balanced budget in April. Questions around the compensation study that is currently underway?
Well done. I think you've settled in.
Thank you, Ms. Nadeau.
Thank you.
Next for the board's information is the staffing and budget timeline, and again, Ms. Nadeau and Mr. Trowbridge.
We'll have Mr. Trowbridge speak now.
Well, suffice it to say, we've collaborated on this project, along with each of the members of our department. We established a timeline just to kind of have a workflow, follow statutory timelines, keep our information in front of the board timely for preliminary looks and approval. And it's the process that is very similar to what we've used in years past with just some adjustment in dates. It does feel like each year we try to start this a little bit earlier, and I think that is an aspiration that we have, and we're entering into this with that understanding again this year. Just want to share the timeline with you, kind of our work plan moving forward. Anything to add?
No, you did a great job. Thank you.
Does have any questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Trowbridge and Ms. 13.03 is Elementary Boundary Review Committee meeting. And that,
What is going on? All of a sudden, you're like,
He's
he's getting lower and lower.
Neck is almost up to the table.
at the next meeting of our posture committee meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody let the air out of your.
Boundary Review Committee meeting, let's see.
No?
Mr. Holt?
Yes. I did provide, Mr. Trowbridge and I provided you and constituents with a status update that was in your packet, and I know that you've had plenty of time to review. Before moving forward, I would look to Ms. McKillop and Mr. Olson to make sure that Mr. Trowbridge and I did capture the work that's been completed up to this point, and then maybe upcoming work and next steps. Was that report, did it meet with your, not necessarily approval, but did we accurately capture what's been going on thus far?
Yeah, yep, we've had 2 meetings, so far, and we have a, large group, so there's a lot of different stakeholders. And the meetings are very organized and going good.
Awesome.
And I think that this group is starting to understand what the district is doing and why we're doing this stuff. The next step is what's gonna be critical, conveying it to the public, you know, why we have to do these things and why it's essential to take a look at this now. So I think that I talked to one educator there that said, you know, I know now that there's gonna be some decisions that have to be made, but, you know, it's important that we find a way to convey this to the public as we go forward.
And one of the ways that we can do that, I am excited to bring forward to the board tonight, I did, with the help of Chad and Angela and Kathy Strecker and Cara Schuler, we do have the website ready to go earlier than anticipated. So tonight did want to show the board that we will be able to make this go live on our website tomorrow morning.
Correct constituents. It's missing a T.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's backwards. Got it. Thank you. That's a good catch.
You say it fast, it sounds the same.
Right? Thank you for catching that, though.
That's the Constitution.
We need to talk to the ELA people.
I hate,
I need help, clearly.
Mind is not supposed to catch that.
yeah, I hate
Those
spelling
things just
errors,
pop
yeah.
out at me.
My
I'm
wife is the same way.
very
Yeah,
So
detailed.
as long as there's 3 of the correct letters in the right spot.
Yeah.
You
I
can
didn't
mix
catch
them
it.
up if you want. I just thought we're an education facility and we might want to
Absolutely,
spell
yes.
correctly.
I hate spelling errors. I can't stand them. So for me, thank you for catching that, because it doesn't go live until tomorrow. Right
When
now.
you said tomorrow, I thought
Right, thank you.
Step up.
So, and I gotta give kudos to Cara Schuler. She essentially is the one that created the graphic there that we'll be using on the webpage. So if you click on EBRC's purpose, it's just the statement that was determined by the Elementary Boundary Review Committee in regard to why they're doing the work that they are. If you could close that, please. This is probably the most important document that folks will find on the website when they're doing their reviews. Based on Cara's recommendation to me and how to set this up, it is in a pageless format. And if you'll close that box right there, constituents will be able to go through and they can just click on a tab and it'll take them directly within the document. So if they're more concerned about one thing over another, they can utilize that tab on the left and just, because in the end, this will be an extremely long document. For the board's note, in case you want to see summaries of the first 2 meetings, you would find those at the end of the document. Scroll down and you'll be able to see that work that's done. You could have clicked on the tabs.
I can't read it.
Oh, you can't read it? Awesome. So any questions about that at all? So you can close that. And then the next 2 tabs would be the timeline, so that people can keep track of that, obviously, and that's in PDF format because there's no adjustments that will need to be made to it. And then this is the first board constituent update, so what you've already seen. It was in your report tonight. So, but the community will also be able to locate that very easily. One of the strategies that came out of the committee's work is that our communication strategy, people will be able to find all these things through various communications that are going out, through board considerations, through our building newsletters, and also I'm going to do a email blast to all of our parents at the elementary level here this next week to, just trigger for them to, this will now be active and they'll be able to go in and review all the materials and all the things that are being considered. This is also one of, for our opening podcast that's coming up on January 8th. This is one of our topics of discussion during the course of the podcast. So that's where we are right now with the elementary boundary review committee.
Board members have any additional questions? All right. Thank you, Superintendent Holmes. Next is discussion of board activities. We only have one. December 10th was the board learning walk at the Chippewa Valley High School. This is an exciting one because this is one where we had constituents there. First of all, as a background, who was that had that idea? It seems like we got some very positive feedback on that already. So, who was actually at the Chippewa Valley High School walk? A lot of people.
3 of us, yep.
Okay. Would you go ahead, whoever wants to tell a little bit about it?
Well, I mean, for me, one of my former students at Homestead stood up and gave a speech and talked about, her former self and how because she's in a situation that's safe and confidence and connecting for her whole world has changed. And it was just so impactful. And her dad was sitting there. It was super cool. Just saying that small environment that we're able to offer at Chippewa Valley High School, how important it is for some kids. That was my big one, but the whole event was well done.
And if you know of, we're gonna have a communication meeting coming up here shortly, and things we're gonna be talking about is, going forward, how do we find additional people? We've been very fortunate that we've had a lot of impactful constituents walk with us, and it's just eye-opening for this to see what the district is doing. And we did this because we wanted to have a more positive approach to what our district is doing and give our stakeholders that chance. So we'll be meeting here shortly to go and just little stuff like sending thank you notes in the future when we do walk and learn. So not only Kathy takes care of the constituents, but we need to send thank you notes to the administrators who are putting all that effort in for us, and thank you and recognize their efforts and stuff. And I think that administrators like it that we have 5 or 10 people rather than 3 people to make it feel like the effort you put in is worthwhile. So thank you for all you guys are doing, and I think it's important to our community that they see what you guys are doing, so.
I know when Kathy's reaching out, she's looking at people that she just knows who have expressed interest, but also perhaps local government officials in that area.
Well, that's what our meeting's gonna be about, as far, like I said, service clubs, chambers, government officials, and then just public. We had a couple parents have already been part of it too, and I think that's all important. So we're just, we have to find out, is this going to have a life extending, or how long will this run like this? But we'll keep evaluating. But there's lots of places we can reach out to get the word out, and one of the reasons we did this is to provide people education for future board members that want to run, so they get a little picture of what the district is and stuff like that too. So there's lots of positives we can get from this.
Highlighting the good.
Yeah, it was really good. I remember Mr. Schaller years ago when he came asked the board, would we consider alternative pathways to get kids graduated? So having those pathways for kids to get their high school diploma who maybe don't, the large number of kids, they're just not comfortable there. Like the student that Sherry was talking about, she just wanted Friday to come so she could go home, and now she's taking on leadership roles, and she's found her passion and what she wants to do after graduation. So, and one of the things that, the stigma that we can't seem to shake is that it's a behavioral school, and that's not what it is. It's just an alternative learning environment for kids who, you know, it depends what their barriers might be.
Credit
That gives them,
deficit, so
yeah,
it's
yep.
basically where they can get the credits they need to graduate.
Yep.
Well, good. Thank you, all three of you, for representing us there.
May I add one additional?
You certainly may.
Now, I don't know if I was invited to this based on my former career or based on being a school board member, so I guess I'll just say it. The Cardinal Connections virtual networking happened on December 7th, and it used to be an in-person, and it is now, since COVID, gone virtual, but basically it's something that Ellen Riley coordinates, and she is our family community partner. And you know, there's over 100 slides, so if you guys didn't get invited and get that slideshow, you should make sure they get that sent out. It's over 100 slides of different agencies and different people and places that network with us as a school district to provide for kids, to provide options. And so it's now a 1 hour virtual where you get the slideshow and everybody kind of is invited to update because people keep changing, right? But then you've got an hour to go into breakout rooms to just hear what people are doing and their passion and their commitment for supporting kids.
One more thing, you should be getting more emails. I know you like your school emails, but I've asked Superintendent Holmes, in the future, if we can, every elementary school has their own newsletters, and the school, middle school and the high school, and I've asked that we as board members receive those. Because that way, we can kind of keep contact with what's happening locally and stuff too, so if you see those coming, that's all my fault.
And you don't have to just trust Addison's reports. for
Well, no, we'll back her.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Next is a discussion of this meeting. Board members have any questions or comments they want to make? Now's the time to make it.
It was a pretty big meeting, but we moved through a lot of information pretty efficiently.
Can I
You can.
Nope.
One of these days.
You might ruin what she just said.
No, I want to thank y'all for moving through. You know, Angela's generally really, really good with her assessments, but she was kind of off tonight.
Yeah.
So darn the luck,
I just wanted you all to be excited when
Yeah.
we're done.
That's good.
So, unless we have another 30 minutes of filibustering, we will be.
Must be because Dennis and Sharon weren't here.
You know,
They're
you
not.
know we're
They
recording.
aren't. Either one of them aren't. They hear it, but it's not true. So.
1402 is future agenda items and upcoming events. December 27th is the deadline for incumbents to file declarations of non-candidacy. Thank you. January 7th is the deadline for school board election candidate paperwork. There are 3 seats for the spring 2025 election. January 10th is Coffee and Commerce at Culver's. The district is sponsoring this event. That's at 8 a.m.
Show up.
January 13th, drawing of lots for the ballot order. January 14th, Chamber of Commerce annual meeting. Registration is required for that. That's at the Heidi Center. Pretty special event. January 16th at 1 o'clock is the board learning walk at Southview Elementary. January 22nd to 24th is Wisconsin State Education Convention. Registration is required for that as well. January 27th is the Policy Committee meeting. January 28th is our regular January board meeting. January 30th is the staff holiday and years of service recognition gathering at the View. Please RSVP if you want to come to that. And of course, not on this list, we have some upcoming things such as Christmas and New Year's as well. So enjoy those, y'all. Any other things you want to add that are not on that list? All right, it says 9:50, motion to adjourn. So anybody want to make a motion to adjourn now, or we can wait?
just one comment on the January CFAUSD staff holiday and years of service recognition. I know it's a holiday and everything, but I'll be DJing the event again this year, and I've made an executive decision that it's going to be a yacht rock celebration.
Have to look it up.
Yeah, do we have to look that up now?
Possibly, if you don't know what
Is that what
yacht
the
rock
staff
is.
wants?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I think they will. I don't think you
Surprise
know
me.
that you want it.
All right, let's look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Olson, second by Martineau.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, we stand adjourned.